Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of Quickmail.io.
And this is Amar with ZenMade. And yes, today we are going to talk about acquisitions. I thought that it would be an interesting topic while we were chatting pre-recording to just discuss what acquisitions for our companies might look like and what might come along with that. I know Jeremy has already mentioned that he doesn't feel like he's maybe personally ready for that, so I thought it might be interesting to explore why and kind of like what I'm going to be looking for future things. And yeah, I don't know. I just thought that it'd be a fun one to chat about. So.
Yeah, as I was saying
Yes.
to Amar, I don't think on a personal level in my entrepreneur career and so on, I don't think I'm at that level yet where I'm doing deals for either growth, tech, whatever kind of thing. But Mr. Amar just mentioned, but wouldn't you buy like a great technology like for 20K? And I was like, yeah, I could probably think of that. And maybe that's my entry point into buying and then doing bigger and bigger and bigger deals type of thing. Because,
Hmm.
it's like everything, once you do it once, you get a better understanding of what's involved, what to do, what not to
Yeah.
do. So take it for a total rookie at my level. I'm not sure if I will. I'm not sure if that opportunity will present itself or if I will seek those opportunities. But right now I have
Hmm.
zero XP. I'm always buying or using.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. Makes sense.
buying. I'm always using or building. That's the one. I'm
Ah,
a
gotcha.
builder or
Okay.
user.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay.
What about
Um,
you? How do you feel you are in your journey on that?
so what's interesting is that I feel like I'm much further along on that journey than most folks, and only because I've already failed twice at it. That I've already acquired two companies in the past 2 years for like $25,000 that have essentially gone to zero, right?
Mm,
But it's also shown me that it's not impossible to do these things and to actually buy them and to kind of pull these sorts of things off. So we've tried to buy a couple of other companies that I think we put in offers for one was low six figures, like 130, 140K, and then we made another offer on another company in our industry for about $250,000 that we made sometime during the pandemic. So maybe like a year and a half ago, something like that we made to try to acquire a couple of companies. So for me, it's definitely on the horizon, and I more and more, one of the reasons that I think it popped into my head is because it's something that I have been thinking about. I mean, Jeremy, you obviously saw that list
mhm,
that I'd
mhm.
showed you that was like kind of the ways that we're looking at growth. That I have a lot less interest these days, particularly in my specific industry. Like with ZenMade, I have a lot less interest in managing the creation process of new products, whether those are info products, whether they're software products, whether they're anything else. And so, at this point, I'd rather expand ZenMade's offerings and services by acquisition rather than by creating from the ground up with our audience.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like for me, just to put things in context, we are
Yeah.
using um, uh, I now use a tool that automatically checked 100, 50 blacklists or something like that in one API
Hmm.
call. And I basically just implemented it. So for me, instead of
Hmm.
actually, I mean, the technology will be great to have, but I wouldn't build it. Definitely. Like this is clear. Like I wouldn't want to go and find a relationship with 150 blacklist in order to figure out how to communicate with them and stuff like that. I would just definitely
Yeah.
go straight to the company and then say like, hey, can we buy your company? If I thought, this would be expanding my business, it probably would, but I feel more
Yeah.
comfortable at this stage. It's just like, well, I'm going to pay $50 a month and use it, you know? So
Well, but is it something that you offer to your customers?
not yet. This is something that I'm thinking of. But the
Okay, well,
acquisition for me,
that's where the acquisition comes in, right? Because I'm not going to acquire a company that I could just use for $50 a month, right? Like the point is to acquire a company that I can then take and can then offer those
of
services to my
course,
customers, right? Yeah.
of course.
So like, yeah.
Um, the way I see acquisition for me is
Mm,
either it's for growth, like you're stalled in an industry, or you can't really go past a certain audience and stuff like that. So you're going to expand by just buying another product that you can then take on and then benefit the cross selling and stuff like that.
yeah.
The other
Yeah.
one is for talent. Like, no one wants to come to work at, company X. Well, let's just buy
Mhm.
company Z and and get those talents, automatically in it. And the other one is obviously for tech. Like they got something that is, a nice way. Like for us, it'll be like the AI, building stuff automatically. We could just
Mhm.
buy that stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, to me, those are like two
Um,
sides of the same coin. It's like buying
Pretty
something for
much.
the tech or for like the talent is like there are different considerations with each, but it's essentially like I consider it's like that option versus like buying something for growth or for traffic or whatever. So yeah, so we looked at like some complementary softwares or some other ones that other software that we could also offer to maid services in the industry. And then
Mhm.
we've also looked at acquiring a couple of actual competitors in the industry. And at some point, I do want to be the one that consolidates some of the companies, um, just because I think that it's a gigantic power play, and then like it's also just like um, I mean, yeah, like I think there's just some really good things that we could like get out of that, but the price has to be right. That we can't
Yeah.
sell or we can't buy for like many multiples, but the combination of buying someone else's email list plus like the software, like
Mhm.
depending, it's yeah, this is where it gets complicated, right? Because it's like, do you buy it and do you keep it up, or do you just buy it and just be like, yeah, we bought it, we're shutting it down? Like we're just sunsetting it like immediately, right? Like because we don't want to maintain two code bases, right? But like half in mind to do that sometime.
Yeah, no, and for me, it will be like definitely to accelerate development. Like I think the blacklist
Yeah.
is a fantastic example. Like it would take us months to come to that level where they are already.
Makes
And
sense.
I don't really see that because it's not, really all core technology in a sense. It doesn't, and plus it's not
Yeah.
like rocket science. You just need to have like licenses to all of the blacklist. Um, the other thing that, and the other thing that someone could consider is basically buying part of it, like, buying 10%, 20%,
hmm
whatever. Um, but I don't like the negotiation part. I mean, this is something I really don't like. That's why we don't negotiate on price on Quick Mail. It's like, hey, it's what you see is what you get, and then that's it. And then you move on. It's just like, this is something I really dislike doing, and I'm not really taking any joy or pleasure out of that. And you kind of have to do that because there's no like, this is a self-service price. So, like you mentioned, you need to negotiate the multiples, you need to negotiate, whatever, yada, yada, yada.
Well, but it's a one-time thing. Like I don't think
Yeah.
that that's necessary. Like I don't think that's a good reason to not do that. Like I'm not looking at that. I don't enjoy negotiating at all. I don't enjoy that process, but I want the business and I want to tack that business onto our business. So like that's why I'm open to this, but also like you, like we don't negotiate on price. Like the exception is if people have like over 20 cleaners, then we have some pretty standard like discounts that we like that we offer. But beyond that, it's very, very like cookie cutter, and we just don't spend our time with it, But like I
Mm,
think that negotiating to buy a business, that's pain that I'm willing to go through because the benefit is that much more, and it's such a rare thing, right? Like you don't have to do it that often for massive benefits. Where if you did that with customers, you do it every single day, right?
yeah, yeah, that's true. In fact, I'm saying that, but
Yeah.
I did try to buy a business once, but my
Yeah, I
attempt
was gonna say,
stopped
I thought you
at,
told me about that.
yeah, I tried
Yeah.
to buy mailtester.com, and the guy just replied politely no. I asked him again different ways. He also said no, and then I sort of like move on. Um,
Okay.
yeah, but that would have been something that I would have considered buying instead of building, because I saw that as a
You
nice
should reach out
complement to
again.
Quick Mail.
I mean, I've definitely heard about quite a few folks that like run sort of business conglomerates like empires or whatever, and they say that some of the best business deals they've made are ones where they just had a relationship with the founders or just followed up with the founders on like a quarterly basis because they knew that they wanted to buy the business, and eventually the person said yes. And they're like, sometimes it
Makes
takes
sense.
5 years, right?
Yeah, at some time you
Yeah.
got like a founder fatigue coming in, and then boom. You just need to hit them while they are, what they are stable or
Yeah,
like they're
yeah.
down kind of thing. In fact, there was a
Yeah.
there was a hedge funds or a private equity firm that
Yeah.
that only did that. They actually reached out to people after 3 years.
Yeah, that idea of like after like just a couple of years, that reminds me of Ryan Culp, who has Fork Equity. That for him, I don't know it's as much about the timing, but he tries to buy businesses that I think are in the $10,000 to $20,000 range, because that's oftentimes like where it takes solo devs that are talented to get to that range, and that's where they have to make the decision of, it's not just about burnout, but that's
Ah, that's
also where they
interesting.
have to make the decision of, do I want to like turn this into a real business, hire a team, and give up a large portion of my margin, or do I want to just stick this out, kind of do this alone or whatever? And so like what he found, or his like thesis, is that's one of the best times to kind of come in and to buy the business and be like, hey, we'll take it from here, we'll scale it up, leave them some equity in the company if they still want some like upside in it and all that stuff, but then they get like a nice exit. And so like, yeah, when you
Yeah.
say that, the timelines there match up, I think, particularly in this day and age. I think like when we were starting, it took a bit longer, I feel like to
Yeah,
like
it's
get
an
off the
interesting
ground. Now I
thing.
think it's a bit faster.
Makes sense. I'll probably reach out again. The other thing that I have in my mind that, kind of like I don't want to go through the hassle is that most, I mean, I don't know if this is, on Twitter or whatever, but most of the things is like
Hmm.
totally unrealistic expectations type of thing in terms of multiples. And
Yeah.
that really, bothers me a lot. Like this is time as
I
well that
don't
I'm going
care.
to, yeah, but you're going to invest some of your time, right, to do that. For you, it kind of makes sense because this is the direction that you want to go for, like being, able to do a lot of deals and so on. For me, I don't care about that. Like
Yeah.
I have a very, everything's sort of like comfortable at this stage. I don't know.
Well, I wouldn't say things are uncomfortable for me. Like I just want to go and do those things,
That's
right?
not what
Like
I
it's not
meant.
out of
Is
like
that
the,
this is not something I seek
yeah.
or I want to do, That's what I meant by
Okay,
comfortable.
okay, gotcha. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
investing,
that's fair, right? It's to
I thought
each
at
their
some
own.
time to invest into business. Like, I thought like, what's next after founder? Like, is it investor? Is it like, should I actually build a sort of portfolio? Is it multiple companies and so on?
Hmm.
And I think I came sort of like to piece to it and so like for me, I think that's it, and I'm happy with that. I mean, I will
Yeah,
probably stay a founder all my life, and that's what I like and love doing. So I may create
yeah.
another company
So,
at some point, but my goal is not to have a portfolio of company. Maybe my son will want to
mm,
do that. He's definitely
yeah,
seems to be inclined to do that, but I don't think it's me
yeah.
at this stage, and I'm comfortable with that, right? And
Yeah,
that's
yeah. That's cool.
that's
I definitely
important.
put some thought into that, like as well, because I definitely thought like a couple of years ago, like how cool would it be to be investing in like in all these companies, and now like I don't really have any interest in that. I want to be a business owner, so I want to have a portfolio of companies where I'm the primary like owner of all of the companies and can determine the amount of cash that's pulled out of the business and all
Yeah.
of that stuff. And then anything outside of that, I'm probably just going to put money into like safer public markets and stuff where like I compared to a couple of years ago, now it's like I have zero interest in angel investing, right? Like I have no interest in putting my money into something that might pay off like a huge amount like 10 years down the road if the company
Exactly.
had, like, yeah, that those are not the sort of bets that I want to take. I'm more like, no, like I'll buy 50% of, like a bootstrap business. I'll fund it a little bit and get an operator to come in and to build something similar to like what we've done or something like that, right? But like, so to me it's, you know, either like public, like late stage
Mhm.
investor or like early stage owner. So,
Yeah, that
or
makes
early stage
sense.
acquirer.
Is there other
It's
way for, people
mm,
who listen, do they actually is there other ways of acquiring business that are not like purely just you acquire and then you go and run it, or you exit the founder and then you do stuff like there must be like other type
Yeah,
of
there's
deals,
so
right?
many different ways. Yeah, I mean, so essentially for anyone listening, I mean, really, you can find or create any deal that you want. You just have to find the right person. You can't force your terms on anyone. But if you decide that you only want to buy a business that's going to cost you like under $25,000 from a solo dev, and the solo dev is going to stay on the project and keep working for you, you can set that as a requirement. That may drastically limit the number of companies that are open to selling to you because a lot of people aren't going to want to take that deal and to take a job. But if that's the requirement, you can find that. And so, one thing that I've learned, because I spent quite some time on this during the pandemic, I went through a couple of courses on acquisitions. I've acquired two companies like myself at this point that both like flopped for, reasons entirely like within my
What a great
control,
track
right?
record.
Like, yeah, but it's the experience, right? Like the
I
whole
know,
thing
I'm
is like if I
teasing you.
went through, yeah. Um, um, crap.
Sorry, you were
I
going
lost my
through
lost my train of
courses.
thought.
It's my bad. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so
Going through course.
going through
Yeah.
courses and on like the micro like acquisition stuff and how to like get like these sorts of things. And so there are a couple of things that I learned about that I was not previously aware of is around like the financing. So like if you have a company that is let's say is making $20,000 a month, like when ZenMaid was making $20,000 a month, Arun and I think, might have been paying ourselves maybe $2,000 a month each. So we were paying ourselves about $4,000 out of this $20,000 a month like budget. If someone had come in and had offered us, let's say, $250,000, right? Maybe it had to be more at 20K a month, but let's just say, for example, they offered us $250,000
Yeah,
to
that'd be
buy
just 1 year.
ZenMaid,
Mhm.
right? It would just be like one year, right? So it'd be a low like multiple. But the point here is, or let's just say they offered us $500,000. But what someone could do is a buyer could have come in and they could have said, "Hey guys, we'll buy ZenMaid off of you for $600,000, so $100,000 more than you value it. But it's contingent that we want to pay you on a 2 year like basis. So each of the monthly payments is like, let's say, $25,000 a month." And
Mhm.
so they might have been able to come in. We would have been like, cool. Now we're actually taking home half of $25,000 instead of 20% of like of 20,000. It'd be a big like win for us, but they would essentially be able to buy the company and use most of the company's existing revenues to pay back like that loan, right? And so that's called seller side financing. And then if you're in the United States, apparently there's like some SBA loans and some other like options that you can get from the government. Like an SBA loan, you can get like up to, I think it's like $6 million or something, that you can get a loan from the government to then go out and to buy a business with a pretty reasonable like payback rate. So right now there's a
Okay.
lot of ways financially to actually make like these things like happen. And the nitty gritty details are really like on you. So then one thing that's interesting actually, Jeremy,
Mm-hmm.
is for us, we obviously have revenues through ZenMaid and through QuickMail. So I already work with Clearco, which is formerly ClearBank, and Stripe Capital to take loans from those guys. So
Yeah.
now we have like a lending and a payback like history. So if I wanted to go to the bank, I could go back and get like more money from them. But essentially, with a couple clicks of a button, I can put in almost $500,000 into ZenMaid's accounts between like Stripe Capital, Clearco, and I think one other like
Mhm.
lender that would like loan us money. And so that's how I was able to offer like $250,000 for a company. Like we didn't have $250,000. If
Oh,
they'd
I
said
see.
yes, I would have found a way to get it done. Right. But, in this day and age, it's an easier time than ever to actually raise money,
Yeah.
particularly at our level. You couldn't do that before. I mean, not that it matters for you, but yeah, sorry, that was a bit of a brain dump. Bit of a brain dump there.
No, I think it's cool. I don't
Yeah,
like to be leveraged on a personal level and on a business level. I wouldn't
yeah,
like
makes
to
sense.
lose my business just because of poor financing decision one way or another. let's say, for example, that your company is buying a new business, the new business gets sued by whatever, and then suddenly all your money of your first business has to be spent not only on buying the new business, but also on covering the loss of the low. That'll be pretty bad, as I can see it. So I don't really like to over leverage myself, but at the same time, it makes sense to sort of like do that buyer, seller side, whatever, like you mentioned.
Financing,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
And
think
yeah,
it's a
to
very
that
smart
point, I
deal.
think, yeah, I think that's something where with what you were just saying about not wanting to do that, that I think has a lot to do with like risk profile and then also with
Absolutely,
like with age,
100%.
right? That I think, yeah, if you're listening to this and you're like in your 20s, you're building like a company early on and like, you know, you are really shooting to make a lot of money and everything, then it's like I think a lot of these acquisitions and some of the stuff that like I'm talking about on this episode might be worth like considering. I think that if you're
Mhm.
older, if you have a family, and you know, if it's like okay, like you know, if this goes to zero, it's not going to be pleasant getting back like on our feet and supporting the family like in the meantime and all of that stuff. Then I think your risk profile has to be like completely different, right? Because like I'm definitely willing to take some risks now that I could see if I was like 45 or 50 years old, that it would just be like, you know, I could see how that could make us an extra $1 million a year, but it's just not worth the risk, you know. And I
Yeah,
can
all
see that
the
as I get older.
I'm not sure this is necessarily an age thing, honestly. Like I've been doing business for 8 years now, and I've always been like risk averse, right? Always trying to
Well,
find risk. But you're right. I mean,
you
and I
always
take a
have
lot
been,
of
yeah.
risk on the other hand. Like I'm like fully in crypto as well, which is like a massive risk. So I'm not really sure. I think it's perception of risk for sure, 100%, and what you consider being
Mm,
risky and not risky. And for me, this is not really the problem because as a company, I have a limited companies. So that means that my money is not the company of the money of the company and vice versa, right? So if the company gets sued
mm,
and then the company owes millions, it's not me, it's the company, right? And so that limits automatically the risk. So I think it really depends on your risk profile. You're absolutely right on this one. I don't necessarily. Yes, there is a tendency that as people get older, they have basically less time to catch up if to make it back.
yeah.
If
Well,
it goes back to
that's all that
zero.
I
But
meant. Yeah.
yeah,
That because that's all that I meant. Because like we know that you've always been very risk averse, right? Like nothing's changed in the
that's
past
true.
8 years. This is not like you've gotten more risk averse over time, but generally people do. Generally, it's why
That's
people tend
right.
to get more conservative. It's why they tend to become
Mhm.
more risk averse as they get older. Like because I'm noticing that I was much more willing to take risks, you know, 5, 10
Sure,
years
you just
ago,
needed
like
like
compared to
$10 a
now.
day on an island to survive one day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but that's the whole thing is, you know,
Yeah,
that's when
yeah,
you have
sure.
the time to take risks, you know. Like we talked about that early on when we were starting the companies, and it's like you jumped out to enough money to go full time on it. Like we didn't, you know, like
Eh,
we weren't making enough like money and stuff, and like, you know, it was challenging, but then also like, you know, if we'd had families, we wouldn't have gotten ZenMade off the
yes.
ground. Like we
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
have gotten ZenMade working if Arun and I had families at the time. It just
Have
would
you
have never worked,
have
you
you
know.
seen Pursuit of Happiness?
Yes.
I rewatched it like very recently with my family, and I was like,
Yeah.
man, I mean, this is sort of it's for the listeners who didn't see it, which I doubt, but it's still possible. It's a Will Smith movie where he's basically completely bankrupt. He's alone with his kid. He has zero money, and then he takes an internship, which is basically his shot. And then it's like
Mm,
sleeping in a toilet. It's just like this zero money left, and it's still carry on and give all he has. And this is pretty an inspiring movie, of course, but it's like such a
yeah.
massive level of risk. That's difficult to but anyway, it has absolutely zero thing to do with buying a business. I should go back to the topic. That's
Uh,
it for me on the buying for a business. Do you have any more things?
yeah.
Oh well, how
I'm
should someone get more
yeah,
knowledge,
done.
right? Knowledgeable into buying new businesses. Like if I wanted to start a new, buying businesses, what should I pay attention to? What are some of the pitfalls? What are some of the key learnings that you had with your two business buying? And where can people find more information for that?
Yeah, so the best course that I've seen is Micro Acquisitions by Ryan Culp. That one I would recommend. If you guys want to contact me, I can send you an affiliate link. There's no real benefit for you, but I'll get some money. So, feel free to do that. Or just go over there because it's a great course. You'll get a lot of value out of it. And Ryan's cool. It's always good to support his projects. You can go to MicroAcquire to like browse all of the
Yeah,
different
the one
ones. That's
the
probably the
one
best
site with
place.
50K, 50x request price.
That's not the norm. That's not the norm. They get a bad rap for that, but that's not the norm. That Yeah, so there's that. There's like Empire Flippers, couple of others, but MicroAcquire is the main one for SaaS products. If you're looking for SaaS products, that's the one to go with. Flippa and Empire Flippers might have some of those, but they more have like content websites and
Hmm.
things like that. And then red flags. I mean, I would say just like do your due diligence. Obviously, I didn't do like proper due diligence in some
What
ways on
was
both
what was
deals
the
and like in
problem
different ways.
of the what was some of the red flag you should have paid attention to in your deal, for example?
Um, so like in the second acquisition that I've done, I made the acquisition with like the business partner, like the guy who owned it. I essentially bought 50% with, and I
Hmm.
think like in hindsight, I think there were some red flags about not about like him as a person because I think that he's a great guy,
My
but I think
situation.
that I think
Hmm.
that I just should have like he didn't really believe in the product, and then once I bought into it, that helped like a little bit with his belief in it, but essentially no one was really spearheading it at that point. I got
Got
kind of
it.
busy and stuff like that, but I mean essentially like we're kind of like calling it even there, and he's just gonna like take back the the company, but I feel like for some of the reasons like in some ways I'm glad that I gave it a go. Like I'm glad that I pulled the trigger and actually found out for myself. In some ways it's like okay, I could have seen
Mm.
seen this one like coming, right? Um but
Well, that's
yeah, just like reviewing the code base, right? Like having friends that like actually taking a look and
good
making sure
one.
that everything's like correct, like all of that stuff. Yeah, I mean, just making sure like all payments are kind of like being like collected and documented in like the right way. That's a lot easier when you're just collecting through like Stripe and stuff. It's more like
Yeah,
small businesses that are things like that. Also just like confirming all of like the web assets and like where traffic comes from. That like I'm mind boggled by some of the
so
things that I've
funny.
seen like in my industry. A couple of folks like they bought one of our biggest competitors but somehow missed that they weren't buying their biggest traffic source. So like they literally sold the company and then just changed their biggest traffic source to just point to this other project they had that's essentially now like another competitor in the industry. It's very very shady on on their part. Like this is the guy that I want to push off a bridge. Like this is the guy who like I'd like nothing more than to just see like completely
What a
destitute, right?
bastard.
Like
Oh, so
such
funny.
such shady shit, like such shady shit. I let them know too. I like emailed their like investors and was like, yo, like that he like just did this, right? And they're like, oh, thanks for calling this to our attention. There's not really much that we can do about it now.
Mm.
And I'm just like, you guys just gave him like how many million like dollars to behave like an asshat? Like I don't get it. I don't I
Sorry for
anyways,
pushing a button.
anyways, to acquisitions, back to acquisitions. I'm happy that he got acquired. He can fuck off now. Um,
You
but
know, this is funny because you're looking at the
yeah,
marketing stuff, like make sure the traffic, and I was looking at the clientele. Like I was thinking in my head, let make sure that you don't have, one client bringing all the revenue, and then just little one hour. For me, that'd
yeah.
be also another red flag to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's something that I would take a look at. I just feel like that'd be a pretty easy one. Yeah, you should take a
Yeah.
look at the customer list and like review all of the payments that have come in the past year. Just scroll through Stripe and literally just look for any anomalies. Because if you find something, you're buying something that let's say made $100,000 in the last year, and then you find $150,000 like charge, and they're like, oh, that was an onboarding for like a custom customer, and you're like, okay, so when are they paying this again? It's like, oh, well, they're not going to pay it again. It's like, okay, well, you're not selling me $100,000 recurring revenue company. You're selling
Yeah,
me a
yeah, that's true.
$50,000 recurring revenue company, and you already walked away with 50K. Like, nice try, you know? So yeah, that's definitely a good one as well.
Damn, I had another one. I was thinking. I forgot. Damn it. I was listening to you. No, never listen to Amar. I knew it.
Always a danger. Always a danger.
um, okay. Oh, NDAs. NDAs. Did you have to sign any like these? One of the reasons why I never even consider like people trying to buy Quickmail. Like I'm not interested, so I'm not selling at this stage. But one of the reasons why I never really considered it was like I don't want people to come in and analyze my business for competitive reasons as well. Because especially when people are already having a portfolio of similar product as mine, right? What
I
what's
mean, you bring this up like quite often, and I've
you
just
don't care.
I get where you're coming from, but I just could not care less. Like there's no
Nice.
number that they're going to look at inside the ZenMaid business that's going to give them some sort of epiphany that they're going to all of a sudden be able to beat us. Every single thing
Well,
that they can find, they can just find by signing up for a trial and just by like breaking down our marketing, right? So to me, it's just like if they're going to go through the hassle of pretending to buy our business to look for that information, they can just go and look up that information anyways. Like at that point, I don't really care, you
well,
know?
they can't see your
Like,
client list. It's not online.
well, I wouldn't send them my client list before. Like, I can send them, like, I can show them like a screenshot of like payments, but I'm not sending them my client list. That's insane.
Okay,
You would, like, even with an NDA signed, I would never send anyone a list of my clients
fine.
or
Oh
like my
damn, I
email
can't
list. Well,
can't get the client list of other
well,
businesses.
no, because dude, I'm not sure where you're getting that idea, but I mean, I think you'd have to be absolutely insane. Like, I don't think that that's just me. Like, like I think that would be absolutely insane to share your client list
I
with
agree.
someone before they bought the business. I like, to my knowledge, that's not asked for.
So you
Like,
don't get,
I would literally just
access to
stop talking to
Stripe.
someone if they asked for that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Uh, you could probably get, there should be some sort of like read only way or like
Yeah,
something
but
like
that
that.
gets
But
you the
yeah,
whole
like
client list. Yeah.
no, okay, but so that's not the way of doing it. There must be some other way of confirming it because I
Well,
guarantee you that when
so
people
you're
like
gonna have to
no
sort
one
of
would
like
share this
take their
stuff.
words at some point. And I'm thinking like once you buy it, you have like a term sheet, obviously.
Yeah.
Where do you actually get that crafted? Like, do you have like a lawyer or do you have, some stuff? Like, how does that actually work? You don't know.
I didn't really. I just took care of this stuff with just boilerplate, like easy download stuff. I think the bigger an acquisition you're going, the more that you want to get it
Yeah.
like checked and like quote unquote like done properly. For mine, I mean, it was two acquisitions that added up to $25,000. It was very much a trust thing where like if like the other person in the deal did something to screw me, there was no legal recourse that I was going to take, right? So like I didn't really care like too much.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know how I am. That's usually how I think about things. To me, I was just like, look, like if you run away with my money, like you're in Russia. I'm not coming to Russia. I'm not doing anything like about this. Like, the only thing I'm going to do is flame you on Twitter. And like maybe your reputation will be burned with 1,000 people that follow me, right? Like that's literally all there is here. So like, it's just here's a basic agreement. I think with the second one, it might have just been an email thing. If we literally just wrote something via email that was just like, this will hold up in a court of law. If you agree to these
Ivan
terms,
at
please respond.
mail.ru.
Yeah, just I like name agree, right?
Got
So
it.
yeah, like because the whole thing is like that's the sort of thing that like once you have someone interested in like acquiring your business or in you acquiring their business, these sorts of things with the legal stuff is really just like technicalities, right? You just got to find the right person to ask about that, and it's not me,
Yeah,
in case that wasn't clear.
it's not me either. All right, so you heard
Yeah.
it for you Russian people. If you want money, it's just Amar at on Twitter. Try to sell your business to him, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's it.
Cool. Yeah, good one.
Thanks, Amar. Bye.
All right.